You're listening to More Than Reports, and I'm your host, Paul B. Felix.
In this episode, we're starting simple with System of Record reporting. Join Paul and Alex as they explain how your existing systems can unlock better data and analytics.
Paul, the last time we met, we agreed that it's not a straight line from deciding you want to build a data solution, that you want to create a data architecture for your business, call it infrastructure, a culture. When you make a decision to run your business, relying more strongly on data, uh, a serious investment has to be made on how to get there. Some consideration, at least serious consideration, has to be given to it. And our conclusion was it's less straightforward than we would like it to be. It's just in the nature of things. There's change, there's complexity in technology, different people with different sets of skills. And you and I agreed there are multiple ways of getting there. And we also agreed the next time we met, we would talk about the simplest way. How do we get started? What is a possible way of getting started? A key theme of our last chat was the trade-offs. As everything in business, there's pros and cons of everything. Talk to anyone in IT and they will tell you it depends. So depends on what, right? So I think it's a good point for us to start is if I want to go on my journey to build a data-driven culture in my organization, run my business with better data, what's the easiest way to start?
Oh, the simplest way is system of record reporting, for sure. So let's just take a second and talk about what that is.
Yeah.
System of record, SOR, is just what we call the place where data is going to originate. So if whatever your business applications are, typically those applications are going to have a database or some type of data storage engine, and that is where data is going to be originally created and stored. So we call that the system of record where data originates. So the idea is basically don't create another data solution. Just simply connect a BI front end tool, business intelligence front end tool, directly to those system or systems of record and plumb data or pull data straight out of the system of record into your reporting tool. Um, on that point of it's not a straight line. It's if you just think about how a company matures, when they start out, they're not uh, immediately going to have a need for a full-blown data warehouse and a full-blown BI solution in general. Their requirements are going to naturally progress. They're going to initially have some initial needs, and they're going to get more and more complicated through time. So sometimes system of record reporting can be the right solution.
Well, yeah, I think it will give you that immediate sense of accomplishment, as in we have reports. We're not now, but one traditional way of getting started is, well, let's get a file out of the system of record. Some people will call that the transactional system. Whatever your business is, you're probably running it on some system. And if we get a file out of that, we can drop that on a spreadsheet and start doing graphs and charts until it becomes unmanageable. And we say, well, we got to do better than that. My question is, when we do these BI tools, is there any chance they would conflict? They would impact the transactional systems? Is there any risk in having them connect directly to the same place where I'm recording my transactions, for example?
All right, there's always going to be pros and cons here. Um, Let me just first address what is a BI tool, because sometimes we use the term business intelligence broadly, and people think that, oh, business intelligence is the BI tool, and other people have other definitions. So our definition of business intelligence is the entire solution. So all the way from bringing in data from source systems all the way through some consumption layer, some user using that information. At the end of that, what people actually see is the business intelligence tool. This would be your Power BI, Tableau, Looker, these tools that basically are designed to consume data and present them in data visualizations. That's basically what they are. Consume data and put this information into visualizations that humans can consume, can understand easily. Clustered bar charts, stack bar, line graphs, those sort of visualizations. So um, the trade-offs here are all over the place. Like one thing you mentioned is you could go with an approach when we talk about system of record reporting that directly connects that BI tool, the front end tool, to your transactional system, your system of record directly. So, what does that entail? Well, it could be simple or it could be complicated. If you're running, let's say, an on-premise application, and you actually have that application in your data center, you're hosting it yourself, and these BI front-end tools can actually access that database that we're talking about, meaning they can make it through your firewall and actually establish a connection. Well, you're in the simplest of all scenarios because you can just go into the BI front-end tool and you can, define the connection, and let's just say Power BI can actually find that data source. Great. But unfortunately, that's not often the case anymore. We have a lot of business applications that are SaaS, right? These are cloud applications, and they may not expose the database itself. They might expose an API. So then there's some other things you need to do there to make sure you can actually collect that information. But still, it might be possible. The other thing you talked about was how is this going to impact things? Well, it depends. I guess that's always the answer. I shouldn't even say that anymore. It always depends, right? But if
You're a consultant, right?
right, it depends, right? I guess that goes with the game. If you're putting a heavy load on your system of record by applying complex, data extraction processes or large data extraction processes, and you're doing that at a time that your business is trying to utilize that system, well, you're probably going to notice the degradation of performance because these transactional systems are not designed for analytical workloads by and large. They're designed for transactional workloads, which is just, if a cash register is the easiest thing to think about. I'm going to process one transaction. And when I process that one transaction, it's going to end up just hypothetically creating a sales entry. Maybe it would create some type of a customer entry, right? One small entry here, one insert here, maybe a little mod here, but it's not a lot of records that are being traversed with these transactional systems. So the data structure is designed in, we call it a normalized way. So it's very much designed for transactional processing. When you put an analytical workload on top of that, and you say something like, I want to see all of my sales for the past 10 years. Well, now you're asking that system to go and respond to a query that is asking for hundreds of thousands or millions or tens of millions of records. And that's not how it's designed. It's not designed to do that. So it is going to negatively impact the system of record. Now, look, there's always caveats here. This obviously depends on how your system of record is designed. If you're, if you have a system of record that has a replication in place, meaning that database is actually copied to an offline area that is not directly impacting your end user performance, well, that's a different scenario. We wouldn't call that system of record reporting anymore. We'll talk about that next episode. That's going to be your staging area, and it solves that problem of impacting performance in your system of record. So that's just one area that you would have to think about here is, is this the right solution? Will it impact the performance of the end users on the application that we're actually, they're actually using the system? Or is it appropriate to go to one of these staging methods You mentioned another one. We could, instead of making a direct system of record connection, we could stage by simply extracting a file and using that file. That's a staging mechanism, very simple staging mechanism. So there's solutions to all of these problems. But if you're going to stay on system of record reporting, or if you're going to start on system of record reporting, which is the simplest, often the cheapest, often the fastest way of getting a point solution created, then you have to at least consider the negative side as well, which we mentioned. Performance on the source system could be degraded if you don't do it, or if you do it in a way that negatively impacts the database performance. You're going to end up with something that's not as scalable as a full-blown warehouse, right? So you have to basically go into this knowing that what you're building is not going to be a data warehouse capable solution. It's going to be a point solution. Maybe some amount of modifications can be made to it to an extent, but you will naturally get to the point where it's just not feasible to continue working in that way. Or you'll end up creating copies of that point solution so that you're then extracting essentially the same data over and over again, or various other methods can be used to kind of stay in the system of record world without, well, I guess there's ways that you can continue to make the system of record world work for you, but you're eventually going to have a negative return on that because it's just going to become too complicated to maintain.
So I get a sense when we say it depends, it's very true, and it depends on a lot of things. The one thought that occurs to me is when we're talking these transactional systems of records, they are very tightly coupled to the business you're running. Talk to a medical group, and you have a whole category there, tens of systems, everyone offering a feature, a unique capability. But with that comes a very unique way of doing things. And when I say doing things, in architecture. And if you want to use those systems as the base on which to build a decision system, which is what we're talking about here, understanding the architecture of the source system is important. Uh, and it's made more challenging by the fact that, in the same business, if you are an insurer, you may have different agency management systems, and they have radically different approaches to the same problem. One might have give you access to the database. One might say, "No way! I mean, my database is shared across multiple of my customers, so you can't even come close to that." Some will give you more data or access to more data via what we call the API, which is a way for programmers to just write a little bit of code and extract the data from those systems. The data available through those programs depends. The vendor, the creator of your system of records, decides what to make or not to make available. So it's really important to when going on this in this direction of building a decision support system, to have a very open conversation with your vendor. If you don't have access to your vendor, look for documentation. That will be the key to deciding. Work with experts that can help navigate that discussion. That will be the key to deciding what path to take, because that can be liberating, but can also be very limiting. So we will have to start, no matter what, on what we have got with the system we chose, right, where we run the business,
Right.
the actual system of records. And what that leads me to is sometimes there's more than one. If you are a car dealership, you may have a sales system, but you also may have a CRM system, and you may want to connect both. So I think, Paul, this is a good time to transition into the next step up. What if I have more than one? I'm running let's go back to medical practices. I'm running my medical records are in my EMR EHR, but I want to cross-reference the data that is there with my appointments, my client, my patient information, the volumes. That's what usually in that area we call practice management systems. Maybe you can talk more about the different distinction between those two. And what are ways of saying, I'm going to stick a reporting tool in front of those? And we're starting with two, it could be three or four. What is the best approach to connecting data from more than one system of record?
Well, the good news is it's doable. These BI front end tools have a lot of very powerful capabilities. Just in the last, I guess, 5 years, the whole BI front end landscape has really advanced quite a bit. For the value, for what you're paying, you get a heck of a lot when it comes to capabilities. So I would say in some ways, the advancements in BI tools make system of record reporting much more feasible today than it was just a short time ago. And again, when we talk about system of record reporting, we're saying there's no data between that system of record, or no data structure between the system of record or systems of record and that BI front end tool. We're going straight through. Yeah, and when you're talking about multiple systems, they're capable. Um, I think when you look at the BI front end tool marketing, you're going to see pretty quickly that they call themselves the business intelligence tool, and they part of their marketing is, look, this is all you need. We can do it all here with BI tools. And it's not that they're not telling the truth. It's just that you maybe you can, but you're not going to want to eventually. But that's to some extent. Again, I guess we're on a paradigm here that at some extent, some point, you can get away with this, where you actually connect the BI front end tool, like in your example, to your EMR and your PM system. If we assume those are two different systems, sometimes in these healthcare systems they have multiple modules in the same system. But if we say that, say, a company's using Emma for their EHR and they're using Epic for their practice management, can we pull data from each of those systems and get that into reports, essentially, that
Without an intermediate storage? Is that
without
possible?
intermediate? Yeah, we can. Um, yeah, it reminds me. I did a project years ago for Chevron, and their request was to not have a data store. They did not want to do anything other than system of record reporting. So we ended up pushing. It was Power BI at that time, kind of early on, but we ended up pushing Power BI to the limits. Like, I'm sure we had at least half a dozen different data sources, probably more than that if you consider some of the static types like Excel files and that sort of thing. And we did all of that integration directly in Power BI within their what they call Power Query using M language. So you can perform a lot of those traditional ETL steps in your BI front end tool. But it's not the same as having a robust tool set or a data structure in the middle where you're able to actually do anything you want freely. Right? You have to coordinate things in that BI tool so that you're collecting information from all of these systems, doing transformations. Right? We're saying these systems aren't integrated, meaning there's no keys that are going to allow us to traverse between the systems. So often that means we have to have some way of integrating basically on the fly. That could be string parsing, which can be complicated. Is it the same patient? Is it the same provider in the healthcare scenario? Is it the same data service, and so on? Again, it can be done, but doing it in the BI tool is going to be pretty hairy eventually. I'm not sure how else to put that, but you also, I think it's worth pointing out that even though we're not creating a data structure in between the systems of record and the BI tool, these BI tools are creating cubes. Most of them, that's what they're doing. They're creating a cube. As you load data into the BI tool, you're actually going to create a cube. And here we go with this it depends situation again, right? You don't have to create a cube in the BI tool. You can actually do direct query, where as you open a report in the BI tool, it's actually sending a query straight to your system of record in real time and then pulling that data back across. But usually with these types of systems, we're trying to make the reports perform as best we can and not put any unnecessary load on the source. So we're going to usually do import of data into these cubes that get generated.
So
That's kind of a long-winded response there, but at the end of the day, it's possible for sure to actually integrate multiple systems in the front end.
Yeah, but it brings up a good point. I think all creators of systems, transactional systems of records, or decision support, business intelligence, or anything, they always have this impulse to or drive to be everything to everyone. Client needs a customer says, "Hey, I'd like to have reports." I'll build you a report. You don't need BI. I'll give you reports. Well, no, it's there's enough challenges in creating reports for that to be uh, uh, excessively taxing to people that just build transactional systems. Yeah, they can drop a chart there for you. I have no doubt. Can they give you the full scope of a analytical system? It's very hard, for the reasons we described here. Computers are amazing but limited. We're talking about records, those little units. Yeah, it's easy to drop one there when you are recording a new appointment. It can be hard to drop that one appointment when someone at the same time is asking you for all appointments in all time. The computers say, I cannot serve the two requests at the same time. It's slow. You're frustrated. And as that repeats, someone says, well, we got to do something about that. The first place we land on is, well, there's this thing called business intelligence,
Yeah.
which brings us to the other point you made. Business intelligence tools also try to be everything to everyone. They say, well, I can create a data structure. And you may not even be fully aware of that, but I'm taking those records from your transactional system and dropping them here. Here being whatever it is that I chose to build. Cubes is a common term. It could be a flat file. It doesn't really matter. All of them will come up with some creative, smart way of doing that. What are the limitations of those structures, though? I'll start with one, and I'll say that with a decent degree of confidence. Um, in all these systems, data needs to live somewhere, and the technology that dominates that space is called databases. They have existed for decades. They're fairly well known. Any practitioner knows how to deal with them, and you can't get around them. System of records, BI tools need to acknowledge the existence of a database. What BI tools do when they say you don't need one, well, they'll try to compensate. And again, we're back in the landmine of trade-offs here. Um, Paul, they compensate. They can do an okay job, but up to a point. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would also say they have a database too. A cube is a data storage
Yeah.
engine. Problem being that it's not persistent. That is typically a volatile storage engine. So it's not like you're storing any data. And if you just think about that little issue there, as soon as you need to store data between, date from day to day, you don't want to just simply collect what's coming from your source system. You want to augment it in some way. Snapshots would be an example, or there's all kinds of reasons why you would want to do that or need to do that. Well, that now is going to typically be beyond the BI front end tools capabilities. Um, I just think it's important to really think about tools what they are. I mean, BI front end tools are a blank canvas. When you buy or subscribe nowadays to a BI tool, you don't have anything other than a tool. You have a blank canvas. Now you need to go get people to actually get something done. And when you tell those people, hey, I need to do all of these complex things, and I don't want to create a data structure between my system of record and my BI tool, you may actually be in a situation where you're going to spend more trying to accomplish that in the BI tool than you would if you created a more capable, I would argue, easier to maintain solution in the middle. Now, I don't think there's no. I don't want to be persuasive here. I'm not. It's neither here nor there.
You're
What?
not trying to sell to me, Paul?
No, I don't care if what you buy. It's just we've been down this road many times, and um, I think a lot of companies, at least early on, think that they can go buy a BI tool and problem solved. But the BI tool is a very small part of the problem, typically. I mean, the real problem is, let's figure out where the value is. Let's figure out how to get that information that we need to actually capture value. How do we need to structure it? Who needs to receive it? How do we embed it within a business process? And and of course, how do we present it? The presenting thing is the BI tool. That's the easiest part, typically. So it's you got to have the right perspective on these things. I think marketing does influence all of us, and whenever Power BI and Tableau and all those tools call themselves the BI tool, well, that's what people, at least in my experience, people seem to naturally think that is what business intelligence is. It's not. That's just the presentation layer. Business intelligence is about using data to capture value for your business. It's not just a tool that presents visualizations. That's a component of it often. Sometimes it's not, though. Sometimes it's reverse ETL. Sometimes it's sending a data feed to a partner. There's all sorts of ways of adding value for a business, including but not only limited to business intelligence tools.
So we're getting to the end of our episode, Paul. I'm gonna try and wrap this up with a quick summary here. Um, it's a convenient way to start to just stick a business intelligence tool. They're now inexpensive, incredibly functional, and can get you there very quickly. As the organization matures towards using data in a more sophisticated fashion, invariably, and we can say that with a high degree of confidence, it may be not so soon, but at some point in time, if the organization grows and needs more data, that will hit a wall. And if we're in this series we started with our last episode, we're talking about data architectures. In that trajectory, in that data architecture that's going to take you for the long run, uh, maybe later, and that's fine. We are not in any way opposed to starting that way. We ourselves do that and recommend that to clients based on what we hear from them. But invariably, there's going to be a point in that journey there where a proper, and I'm going to say the word database, right? It's an architectural decision. You're going to need that type of technology to do things the way they need to do if we are to use them in the long run in the most efficient way. Is that a fair statement, Paul? How would you improve on that statement?
I agree, and I think that I just would want to point out that sometimes an organization, especially early on in this process of using data to add value, you need a win. You need to
True.
show a win, and sometimes even if you know that this is not something that's going to live for the next 2 years or even 1 year, sometimes it's the right decision to go ahead and
Yep.
build a system of record report, point solution, show the value, right? Show that value and get people thinking about, hey, maybe I could do this too. Maybe there's a lot more opportunity out there. And at that point, the small investment that went into a system of record report, even though it might be throwaway in a short time, makes a heck of a lot of sense for that type of an organization.
Right. It can be a powerful catalyst for the organization to see the value of operating in a data-driven fashion.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to leave it at that. See you guys next time.
All right. Take care.
Thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Our next episode will continue the series on data architecture. We will be discussing the simplest way to store your data in a database.